Now's a good time to get a soil test done. You may know something about that, you may not. You can pick up a soil test kit here. I think there's some at the information table, or there usually are. If not, the main Ag Extension office up the big building up at the front. It's very easy to do. Doesn't cost much. I forget what it costs. What, $8, $9, $10? Okay. And there's instructions on there on how to collect your soil samples. So go to your garden, your flower bed, your lawn, whatever you're interested in. Collect several samples from different places of soil, mix it, dry it real good, get the sticks and stones out, put it in that box, fill out the form, bring it here, they'll send it off, and you'll get back an analysis of your soil that will tell you what kind of fertilizer, if any, you need at what rate. Now, the recommendation is generally geared toward a synthetic fertilizer. And again, I'm preaching organic gardening. There are a number of resources you can use to convert that synthetic fertilizer recommendation to an organic fertilizer recommendation. And wait a minute, we're going to have to come to that in a minute. If it's in the back of your handout, I forgot that it's toward the back, but there is there's a section in the back on two sources, and hopefully we'll get to it. On converting, one is converting an inorganic fertilizer recommendation that you'll get in your results to an organic fertilizer. You can build your own fertilizer. It's easy to do, it's not expensive, it's real simple. It's very simple. That particular one is put out by Georgia Extension Service. So it's an extension publication. It's online. You can download it. It's really easy to do. You can buy the constituents locally. Most of them would come from Farmers Co-op, and others might come from a TSC store or maybe a big box hardware store. But you can assemble the ingredients you need and build that. So we'll try to get to that. There's another one by a guy named Steve Solomon. You've also got that one in reference to that. It's not necessarily converting an inorganic fertilizer recommendation to an organic one. It's just a straight organic fertilizer. That's the one I use. It's very easy to build. Doesn't have many constituents. The various constituents are easy to find. You put it together, and that's the only fertilizer that I ever add to my garden. I don't add as much as he recommends. I add less, and I only add it when I plant, and I don't add any more throughout the growing season. And I can do that partly because I spent so much time building up the soil. I've got it. It takes time, but I've got it pretty rich. And I'm adding this organic fertilizer as well. And I don't do any other fertilizer at all.
Is that fertilizer, did you get someplace else, or do you make your own fertilizer?
No, I make my own. Both those, and they're.
For your compost?
Let me tell you where, and the compost.
Okay, so you make that plus compost?
Yes, plus compost.
Oh.
Okay, on page 7, in the middle box on the right, under fertilization, just in case I don't get there, there's two sources of recipes for homemade organic fertilizer. The one I use is the first one. It was published first in Mother Earth News. You can go there, you can download that, you can type a search in on that. It's really an easy organic fertilizer to make. I really like it a lot. Under that, let's see, toward the bottom is one by Georgia Extension. Where is that? Okay, it's on the left, the middle box on the left on page 7. The bottom bullet. Everybody find that? Okay. And we'll try to get to that, but it's really easy to do.
Can I interrupt you one more time on your organic fertilizing and whatnot? This is good for like the vegetable garden, but my blueberries, are acidic.
That's a really good question. You can use this for your berries, but leave out the lime.
Leave out the lime?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good question. You don't want to put a lime on anything that likes acid soil. Okay, one thing that you guys might want to do now, how many of you have gardens right now? Okay. And if you're like me, everything's pretty spent, it's worn out, things are looking bad, it's getting toward the end of the season, except for your cold season crops that are just starting to come in. As you start pulling things out of your beds and freeing up beds, and if you've got beds that are going to be idle for the winter, most of us we're going to have one or more beds in our garden that are going to be idle for the winter. We're not going to be growing anything. Sow a cover crop on it. Some good things to sow are clover, oats, winter peas, hairy vetch, cereal rye, things like that. These are things that will grow and thrive in the winter. Get them sown now. Before they go to seed, go ahead and cut them down, and turn them under with a hoe. You can also till them in. We'll talk about tillers in a minute. I personally don't use a tiller. There are reasons why you're better off, once your garden's established, working with a hoe rather than a tiller, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. So you can use cover crops to help you start preparing your soil. So when you cut that and it dies, it's going to decompose and add organic matter into the soil. There's also going to be a wide network of roots in the soil from the plant that are going to die and really add more organic matter to your soil and loosen it up. And clover is especially good as a cover crop. Why? What does clover add to your soil? Nitrogen. So you're actually pumping nitrogen into the soil. And some people will use clover because of the nitrogen fixing capabilities, but also add something else, like maybe a cereal rye with it, which they just use two different things, and you're adding two different kinds of nutrients into your soil. One word of caution about clover: clover is a fairly perennial plant. You have to work at it because you want to kill it. You want it out before you start planting. So you're going to have to chop it up. Don't spray with Roundup. Just chop it up and turn it under. But it takes a little more work to get that.
Well, I'm really worried about that.
And if you are, don't use it because it does.
Well,
it is.
I planted white clover this summer as a cover crop,
Mm-hmm.
and man, it looks all the same as what I tried to get out the rest of the year. And I thought, oh, have I done myself a disservice?
Do what now? Run that by me again?
Well, I've got it covering. I did it as a summer cover.
Yeah.
crop.
Mm-hmm.
And but I've not tried to turn it in yet, but it looks just like what I try and keep out of the garden.
Oh, I know. But it takes more work, but you'll be able to chop it up and turn it in, let it rest, and then see what resprouts and chop it up. It takes a little more work, but it's a good cover crop.
Well, the vetch I read, and I think I'm going to try this winter, because they said we're going to have tomatoes.
Yeah.
It is definitely an annual.
Yeah.
So you just mow it down
Mhm.
and then plant your tomatoes in a
Mm-hmm.
nice
Mm-hmm.
kind of living, or not living, dead
Kind of like no-till farming.
keep the weeds away
You can plant
from
right in
shade.
there. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Good point. You can also add, if you don't want to do that, you can add about 2 inches of organic matter. So what's organic matter? Anybody compost? Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. If you don't, you should. It's easy. And there's no point sending your organic matter to the landfill when you can put it back in your garden. You can use shredded leaves in the fall. Leaves are going to start falling soon. Believe me, you cannot gather too many leaves. So if you really want to add organic matter to your soil and build up your soil, how in the fall we all rake our leaves and most people put them in bags, just brown bags, and put them on the curb. Well, I'm one of those people that goes around driving through town picking up those bags of leaves.
I do the same thing.
And stockpile, you cannot get too many leaves. So I would go driving around picking up bags of leaves if you don't have enough in your own yard.
No, I've heard that before. I was going to do that, and then do you just till them in to the
There's
chalk
a
soil?
couple of things. One, the best thing to do is if you can shred them. You don't have to, but it's better. One way to do that is pour them out on the ground and run them over and over them and rake them back up. There are also these leaf shredders you can buy. It's like a weed eater on a stand. It has a hook. You attach a bag to the bottom of it. It's got 3 or 4 legs. There's basically a weed eater head. And there's a chute. And most of the hardware stores sell those. It really makes it easy. And they're not terribly expensive, but you just pour your leaves in there, and that weed eater's going around and it chops them up.
Is that like a chipper?
It's different. A chipper shredder is different. It's heavier duty. A chipper shredder will actually, you can use that, but it will actually chop up limbs and sticks and things, small limbs.
Yeah.
This is really just for leaves and things. So there is a chipper shredder that you can use. You can also, one of our master gardeners also came up with an idea of pouring the leaves in a garbage can, put on some goggles, put on some ear muffs, and get your weed eater and stick it down in there and turn it on.
I got a better solution.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It does pretty good.
You can go to Home Depot and you can get one. Looks like a leaf blower.
Yeah.
But it's in your
Shredder, yeah. So there's different
and
ways.
Go around and weed it.
If you can get your leaves shredded,
Easier.
The bag, I just.
Well, mine was over a garbage can.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
And it's
it works.
cheaper
Yes.
than those leaf shredders.
Right. That works too. But basically, ideally, you want to break those leaves down some. They're going to break down faster. You're jump-starting the process. You can also just pour them out whole on your garden. And you might want to lay some sticks and things over them so they don't blow away. And they're going to slowly break down. And then toward the end of the season, start chopping them in. So you can do it without, without shredding. You can also make what's called leaf mold, which is kind of like composting. The best way to do that is to get some kind of a piece of fence, 3 or 4 feet tall, wire, chicken wire or something, make a hoop, and I'll show you a picture in a minute, about 4 feet in diameter, and pour your leaves in there, and just agitate them every now and then. It's kind of like composting, but it's just leaves. And they're going to break down and make what's called leaf mold. So we'll look at that too. So anyway, cover crops, now it's time to do that. If you don't want to do cover crops, start adding organic matter, add compost, composted manure from horses, cows, chickens, shredded leaves, grass clippings. A lot of people use grass clippings, make sure it's from a chemical-free lawn, because in this case, somebody asked a question about chemicals on food. As far as composting, that's not a problem. Chemicals on grass is a different thing. Some of the chemicals used to control weeds on pasture grasses, in some cases on lawns, are persistent, and that chemical will survive the composting process, and when you put it in your garden, it'll start harming your plants. So chemical-free lawn and a weed seed-free lawn. If you've got a Bermuda grass lawn and it's already gone to seed, you mowed it, do not go rake up that mulch and put it in your compost, because you will be seeding Bermuda grass all over your lawn. So just be careful with grass clippings. But they work. Lots of people use grass clippings. Straw, wheat straw. Do not use hay. Everybody doesn't farm, or everybody doesn't come from the country. There's a difference in hay and straw. Wheat straw is basically wheat, and it's going to be a light-colored product. That's all it's going to have in it. When you put wheat straw on your garden as organic matter, and then you turn it in, it's going to really help break up the soil and add organic matter into your soil. But in the spring, you'll get some wheat seeds germinating, and that's not too big a problem. You can turn them under or get them out and just let them grow. Don't add hay. Hay will have all kinds of stuff in it, and all kinds of stuff is going to germinate. Stay away from hay. Coffee grounds, most coffee shops, most of us drink coffee. It's keeping me going this morning. If you drink coffee, put your coffee grounds in your compost, or put them around your garden vegetables, put them around your blueberry bushes. It's really good, around your azaleas, holly trees. Coffee in your compost, in your garden beds directly. You can also go to coffee shops and get big bags of the stuff, which is good. So in the winter, you're adding some or all of this to your garden over the winter as a cover crop, or as just organic matter added to the soil. You don't want that open soil just lying there collecting seeds. So when we get around toward late winter, start turning it under periodically, and you're getting ready to plant. This will be a lot maybe February, right before you start looking at planting some of the early crops, and start working it up. It's working into the soil, preferably with a hoe. Okay, let's talk about composting for just a minute. How many people compost again? Okay, what do you use to compost? How do you compost? Is it a bin, a pile?
Old fence.
Okay, inside a fence?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, kind of like a
Pallet fence.
Yeah, okay. Who else composts?
I got a bin, I bought it long.
Okay, and it's got a crank on it so you can turn it? Those are cool.
I have, I call it the Darth Vader.
Yeah,
And,
the black
I
dome
turn it
thing?
myself,
Yeah,
turn it
okay.
myself.
Who else?
I have a couple of garbage cans that I've drilled holes.
Yeah, that works. The Mark Murphy method. If you've seen one of Mark Murphy's presentations.
I use garbage cans too, and then I just kind of roll them across the lawn.
Okay. That works. Anybody else?
Mine's just, I just got 3 piles.
That works.
They're not in anything.
That works. We'll talk about that. You can do it any way you want it. Compost is going to happen one way or another, no matter what you do. But it's a really important way of collecting rich organic matter to add back to your soil that you're going to have to do something with anyway. It's the stuff you're taking to the curb in terms of shrub clippings, leaves off the lawn, garden waste or vegetable waste out of your kitchen. You're either putting it in the garbage can or you're taking it to the curb, and there's just no sense in that. It's just as easy to put it in a pile and let it compost. It's also, if you're into recycling, it's the ultimate recycler. You can't get any more pure recycling than that. So just very briefly, and I'm not going to give a detailed thing on doing compost, just some high points. But if you haven't seen one of our master gardeners, Mark Murphy, he does an incredible presentation. He's like a compost guru. If you ever get to see a program by Mark Murphy on composting, if you ever see it listed, he does it periodically. You'll be entertained and you'll be informed. It's a very good program. So essentially, you're going to collect, and we're going to talk about kitchen composting primarily, but you can also compost when you prune your hedges. You can compost that, limbs, leaves, whatever. But we're going to talk about primarily right here, things out in the kitchen. So you've got vegetable scraps, banana peels, orange peels, whatever you've got left over from produce that you're using. And it needs to be collected somewhere. Most people will put something under the kitchen sink. It could be a pickle jar, a coffee can. I tend to like, and I'll show you a picture in a minute, I tend to like a stainless steel composting bucket, and I'll show you why. But it doesn't have to be, just somewhere to collect the stuff with a lid on it. And then periodically when it gets full, it'll take it down to your compost bin. So this is a stainless steel composting bucket. I know World Market has them. I think Target has them. You can find them around town. What I like about this is inside here is a charcoal filter that you can take out and dispose of and buy a new one. It's got hose in the top. So what it does is lets moisture out, but not odors. Because you're putting some pretty moist stuff into your compost bucket. And it gets pretty nasty if it's closed up and you can't breathe. It's going to get kind of nasty anyway. That's just the nature of collecting compost under your kitchen sink. But I like this lid because it lets some of the moisture out, but doesn't let the odor out. And that filter can be changed. And you'll see these also. They look just like this. They're ceramic. Do not buy one of those because you will break it at some point. This is stainless steel. It's bulletproof. So that's a good way to start. So you're going to need it somewhere to compost. And you can do it in piles on your property. That's going to happen just fine. That's how composting originally started. Things were just piled up. And after a period of time, you're going to have compost.
You know, I turn mine quickly.
And you get there pretty quickly then, I guess.
Yeah, I get real quick. And
Okay.
if I find one that's not going so fast, I put a little bit of clabbered milk on it.
That's the low-tech way of doing it, and that works just fine. Some of us like to.
Clabbered milk, you know, sour milk.
Yeah.
Like yogurt or.
Some of us like to build things that contain the compost. You can do that too, but you're going to have some place to put it, either on the ground or build you a bin of some kind. And I'll show you a couple of those in a moment. It can be as simple as piling chopped yard waste and grass clippings, leaves, and garden waste in the corner of your yard. Add kitchen scraps to it occasionally to mix it. You've got to have a mix of what are called brown and green substances. I'm not going to give you a list of that. You can go look it up. Green are things that are recently alive. Banana peelings, lettuce, old lettuce, leaves, anything like that are called green substances that you're going to add. They tend to be moisture rich. You're also going to need at least about twice as much carbon as you're going to have. And that would be like shredded leaves, straw, shredded newspaper. Those are the carbon elements. So you need to mix those two things to have compost really happen well. And I would just encourage you to go to look at composting, greens and browns. And you'll get a really nice list you can print off that tells you what's green, what's brown, and roughly a 2-to-1 mixture, roughly.
Do you discriminate in your newspaper? Like, I won't use anything that's got color in it.
Good point. I do shred newspaper sometimes if I don't have anything else to add. If I've run out of leaves and I haven't got a bale of straw sitting there or wood straw sitting there, then I'll go shred newspaper and put it in there. But not the color, because of potentially some of the additives and some of the heat. Your compost pile or bin needs to be about 3 to 4 feet tall and about 3 to 4 feet wide. It's got to have enough mass to build up enough heat to start cooking. And you're looking for a temperature of about 140 degrees. And if you do it right, you'll get there. So some different ways of doing it. The pile, I don't have the pile specifically listed, but that's the easiest way. Make a pile somewhere, every now and then turn it, and make sure you're mixing those greens and browns. A wire bin, I think you mentioned a wire bin, which is just chicken wire, fence wire, something, and a hoop about 4 feet wide. And just start piling your stuff in there. Once you get it, the neat thing about those is once it gets full, then lift the wire bin off, set it over here, and then shovel everything back into it. And that's turning the compost. It's easier than trying to reach in there and turn it. Pallet bin, if you ever go to Pinterest and look up pallet projects, it is amazing what people are doing with pallets. And I don't want to get started on a tangent there, but I love pallets, recycling used pallets and all kind of neat stuff. Pallets make great compost bins, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. The best system for composting, if you really want to get into it, is a 3-bin system where you've got a bin, say on the left, where you start putting raw materials, You fork that over to a bin in the middle, which is partially decomposed materials. Then you have a finishing bin. So stuff goes in on one side, works its way to the other end, and the other end is what you're using. So you're constantly moving stuff through that system. I'll show you that in a minute. I've also got a composting barrel. It's a plastic food grade barrel. If you want to use a barrel for composting or for water harvesting, make sure it has food in it and not petroleum products. Be careful about that. If you do a barrel, just drill it full of hose. Just as many hoses as you can get in it without it falling apart. If you get too many hoses, it'll come apart. You don't want that to happen. And then a wood slat bin, which is kind of like a pallet bin, but it's built out of dimensional lumber, piece by piece. So here's a barrel. One of you mentioned rolling a garbage can around. Barrel's the same way. Just be sure and drill this thing full of holes. These, the Rutherford County Co-op always has these in stock, almost always. They're like $30, $25, $30, and that's it. It's composting bin. Drill it full of half-inch diameter hose, put a few holes in the top, and put some holes in the bottom so it can drain. And then when it comes time to mix it, just lay it over and roll it around the yard. My neighbors think I'm nuts, but it works. Oh, by the way, if you've got kids or neighbors have kids, put them to work. So here's a 3-bin compost station. This one's built out of dimensional lumber. You could also do that same thing with wood pallets. And then here's the wire fence bin. It could be chicken wire, or it could be whatever kind of welded wire fence this is. Just something where the opening's close enough to contain the leaves. This one, again, the material goes in here. Once this fills up, you're going to fork it to the middle. So then you've got partially decomposed material. Then you start refilling this. Once this fills up, then you're going to fork that one over here and that one into here. And that's your ending, your finished product. So it's kind of, you're continually moving stuff through the system. This one, when it gets so full, you just lift this off, set it aside, and then fork the material back into it, and you're turning it. In this case, that's basically making leaf mold right there. It's only shredded leaves. And so here's a pallet bin. I thought that was a 3-bin system, but it must be a 2-bin. So it's very easy to do. You can find all kinds of instructions on the web.
Where'd you find the pallets?
They're everywhere. You can go to big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's.
And just ask?
Building sites, just ask. I mean, you'd be surprised how many pallets there are laying around. They're everywhere. And just look, just be looking and ask. Okay, there's a couple of things. You do want to try to you don't have to have a compost thermometer, but it's fun. It looks like a meat thermometer, but it's about that long. And you just shove it down into your compost bin. It'll tell you what temperature you're at. And you really want to try to get to about 140 degrees. That's when you really start breaking things down and you're killing some of the weed seeds that are going to be in your compost. It's kind of fun just to see what you're doing. So it'll reach a temperature of 140 degrees or so, and then it'll start cooling off and the temperature will fall down. That's when it's time to turn it. That's when everything inside is cooked, but the stuff on the outside isn't. So at that point, you want to turn your compost and get stuff that was on the outside back to the inside. You might also find, I remember the first time I discovered this isn't a compost bin of mine, grass clippings and stuff in there, but I don't know if you can tell, these segmented flat worms, they were everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? What is this stuff in my compost bin? And so oddly enough, I was talking to a guy here at the farmer's market, and he was really into this. He actually had on his iPhone when he brought out video of his bugs in his compost. He was so excited. He'd researched them, and they're black soldier fly larvae. And so what they're doing, they're basically digesting the material in your compost bin and breaking it down. And then once they molt out of this phase, it becomes a fly that flies away and leaves us behind. And then I did some research on them, and I found out that EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, and others actually use these black soldier fly larvae to help break down substances and chemical spills. When it's gotten broken down to a point that it's just in the soil, and on top of the soil, they'll actually break some of that stuff down. So you can actually hear them, and they're kind of chewing away. It's kind of weird, but really kind of a neat thing. So every year since, at some point in the summer, I get black soldier fly larvae, and they're just going to town. Thousands of them in there. It's amazing. So this is what you're going to get. Those of you that compost know, you get a really rich, crumbly material out of it. It's a couple of more comments for you about composting. If your compost stinks, it's too wet. And it will, at some point, it'll get too moist. If it gets too moist, it smells bad. Compost shouldn't smell bad. If it smells bad, add some shredded newspaper, add some wheat straw, add leaves. You need to add browns to it. And every now and then, we're all busy, I lose track of mine. And I'll go down there one day and I'll go to add something to it, and it's like, phew, gosh, it smells awful. That's a sign that you need to add more brown material. You've got too much green stuff in there. It's easy to do. That's really all you got to do. If it stinks, it's not working. If it's too dry, it's not going to break down very fast, but it doesn't stink. If it just looks like nothing's happening, you may have too much brown stuff. You might need to add more green material to it, but that's not very often the problem, really. And so the finished product is going to smell really sweet. I don't know how to describe. Those of you that compost know this. When it's really finished, it's a sweet, earthy smell, and it's really loose and crumbly. And you can use it just like it is, but some people like to build a screen, and you would get hardware cloth and put some hardware cloth on a frame and put that frame over a bucket or over a wheelbarrow or something, and then pour some compost onto it and then start shaking that frame. And what you're doing is screening out the big chunks that haven't broken down quite far enough, and then put those back in your compost. You don't have to, but it really gives you, if you do that, it really gives you a really fine textured compost that you can add to your garden.
Don't you want that, the larger clumps to help keep your soil loose?
It doesn't matter, you can, it will, and it'll break down too. Some people just really like to go ahead and finish composting that stuff on down, but it doesn't matter one way or the other. If you want a really fine, pure, fine-grained compost, then screen it. If it doesn't matter to you, I don't screen mine, but you can, either way.